Hello YouTube. Hello YouTube indeed, and welcome to this week's video. Today I'm going to be taking you over a way that I like to paint flames when I'm trying to paint with at least a little bit of time sensitivity. This will often be how I paint them when I'm, for example, doing commissions where I don't want to pour 6 or 7 hours just into doing flame components on a miniature, but I do want a result that looks really, really nice. So it's quite quick and it's very simple, and we're going to have a little timed section at the end to show you as well so that you can actually see it being done kind of in real time. So let's get to down cam. I hope you're going to like this one. Let's paint some fire. Okay, so let's start things off with Averland Sunset from Citadel, and this is going to be the basis for all of our flame work. We're going to start off just getting a nice even coat over everything, paying special attention to make sure that we don't miss any of those little deep gaps in between the flames, that kind of thing. I'm going to speed this up quite a bit now and just get it filled in because it is several coats, so I don't really want you to have to sit and watch me paint 3 coats over one flat piece. But nicely thinned, 3 coats of Averland will cover pretty much anything, black included. As we get to the end here, I'll just slow it down again so that you can get a bit of an idea of how that looks. I think the back of this is drier so you can see how flat it is. This side's still a little bit wet though. Now we're going to use some contrast Iyanden yellow, and a lot of this workup's going to involve contrast paints. This first run, I'm just going over the entire thing. What this does basically is brightens up my yellows a little bit, adds a bit of a nice deep golden hue to them. You can see after that's dried with a hairdryer, I can now come back in with that Averland Sunset, and anywhere where I've just got too much surface staining, I'm just going to start popping in some Averland, and I'm also going to start to map out where I want the hottest points. So I've decided the striking edge of the blade, the tip of the blade, and just the areas where those flames are starting to erupt from, those are going to be all of my hot points. So I want to be able to lay a nice bright colour on them, and it's better to start from the Averland Sunset than it is from that darkened colour. So just laying the base down for that. There we are, up into the sides of the blade. And again on the back there, just touching in the tips of those flames, making some nice little strokey lines to show where the heat coming from those flames and the blade is all getting towards those white hot points. That's how that looks. We're going to be using mixtures now of Iyanden yellow and Blood Angels red, again both Citadel contrast. Starting off with a fairly unintense orange, you know, just a reasonable kind of mid-orange, and just starting to establish some areas now where I want the blade to look like it's a bit cooler. So this is going to be towards the tips of flames. Flames get colder and colder towards their tip essentially. We're going to be looking at the areas in between those highlights that I started to put in, the areas in between those 2 little rods down the sides in the centre of the blade there. Always pushing in the direction that we want to intensify the glaze. So starting out with a fairly gentle stroke towards the centre of the flame and pushing up towards the tip, for example, because the tip is the part that we want the most intense paint to rest on. From there, we then come into more of a red. This is almost pure Blood Angels red, but I have thinned it quite a bit. So it's still not super aggressive as I lay it down. And I'm essentially repeating the last process, but just shrinking things a little. So just shading less of the miniature, heading further towards the tip, deeper into crevices, that kind of thing. It's important to note here as well that you can touch things back in. If you're not happy with where you've positioned something, you think it looks a bit weird, it's very easy at this stage to just come back in with the Averland Sunset and then the Iyanden Yellow and you can kind of fix pretty much anything. It's very, very easy to be corrective at this stage. You can see I'm just repeating exactly the same process now on the back of the blade. The two little rods, the deepest recesses in the flames, the tips of the flames, that kind of thing. The recesses is more of a thing just to make contrast than anything else. My brightest points are going to be right next to those, so that light-dark contrast will look good. We're going to move over to Wyldwood now. Again, Citadel contrast. And this is the very, very deepest parts now. We really do want to keep this quite thin at first, but we can then go back in and intensify. For example, here where I'm painting the rods, I've kept the Wyldwood fairly thin, just so that it darkens those very, very deepest parts. But when I come to doing the tips of the flames, I'll actually come in with something closer to a pure Wyldwood once I've created a blend. So I'll start off with my thin Wyldwood, and then I'll lay all the tips of those flames in and come back in with more of a pure Wyldwood to get things looking a lot darker. It's all about that process of kind of laying a foundation and then confirming what you started. And as you can see now, I mean, that's already starting to look pretty good. We're getting close to something that looks like simulated heat. Now just coming back in with a little bit of my Averland sunset, because I just want those rods, I want to place some highlights on them, so again I want to be starting with at least some Averland sunset to highlight from. I don't want the whole thing to be shaded down. And again, just to retouch in a few areas in the flames where I felt like I'd got a bit too dark. Same thing on the reverse of the blade. I'm also just trying to hit the spine of the blade there. That was really hard to do staying on camera. I probably could have done that a lot neater if I didn't have a camera above me. Okay, next up I'm coming in with a pale yellow. This is NMM Gold Highlight from Reaper Master Series. You could just, if you wanted to, add some white or some bone to your Averland. I only just got this paint. It was a brand new paint and I just wanted to see what it went on like. It was already the right colour for what I was going to mix to. As you can see now, I'm just starting to confirm those highlights. So those areas that I'd prepared previously with the Averland to be brighter, I'm now starting to come in and just push some nice strong highlights here. These will start off being a bit harsh, but what I'll later do is come back in with a much thinner version of this paint and actually apply some transitional glazing as well. And all that involves basically is after I've laid a strong line down, I then get a thin paint and push it towards that strong line and it creates a bit of a blend into it. And you can see the effect that has here. Came back in with a touch of Iyanden yellow there as well, just to do a little bit of correction. And then back into that NMM Gold highlight or whatever pale yellow you're using. Get the reverse of the blade done. You can see that that flame's starting to look pretty intense now. We're getting some nice build up of highlight. Not forgetting the edges of the blade as well. That's how that looks after the first stage of highlights. Then we're going to move into some pure white from Reaper MSP. Again, any white will do here. You want a nice bright one though. We're going to mix a very, very pale yellow here. This is just off-white. And this is going to be our finer, more pinpoint highlights. We're going to be a little bit more precise now. I'm going to use a little touch of stippling here and there as well, just to get that kind of look of, you know, sort of ashy, flowy, bright, embery kind of goodness. We're just generally trying to be a lot finer, shrink those highlights down, paint within what we'd already started, keep everything nice and pretty and neat as possible. Again, because this is a long piece, there were a lot of times where I couldn't put it in a comfortable angle to paint and get it in shot. So I'm absolutely confident that you'll either find this a lot easier to do not filming it, or you'll just find that it's much more comfortable at least. I probably, again, would have got a bit of a cleaner result if I could have positioned this a bit more freely. So that's just something to bear in mind, the difference between when you're doing it at home and when you're seeing me do it on camera. and that is basically it. From there you can go across and neaten a bit more with some more glazing if you wish to. It really depends how much you want to refine it. Okay, so now we've reached the point in the video where usually I'd show you that nice turntable footage that's going to demonstrate what the model looks like when it's completed. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen on this one. It's a commission, and as such it's ongoing, so I just did the parts today that I wanted to show you for the tutorial, and that's all the footage that I have recorded. However, I did also record a little extra bit that I think might be more useful perhaps than seeing the completed piece in its entirety. What I've done now is taken just a single shot of me painting the whole process, and I've added a little timer in the top corner to that. And that's going to allow you to sort of see how long it's taken me to carry out each step in the process. So we're going to move over to that now. It will still be sped up, but with that timer in situ, hopefully that's going to at least illustrate to you how quick and easy this method is. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so first things first, look, I'm going to be honest, I made a little mistake with that timer. So I thought I was finished, and so I clicked the timer off, which is why you see it disappear towards the end, and then I'm spinning the miniature around for a second. Then I spotted an extra bit that I needed to go back in and do, And I felt guilty for not doing that on timer. So even though I wasn't really for the last 10 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever doing much painting, I kind of turned the timer back on and just let it clock up a bit more so as to not give a false impression of the time. We'll call it a 17-minute paint job, but you know, realistically it was probably actually about 15 and a half minutes painting, roundabouts, somewhere in that region. But that said, I think for a 15-minute workup, that's a pretty alright result. Now, if I applied that to all of the flame work on Guilliman, that probably means that I'd get everything done within, I'm going to say, an hour, which I think for applying flame effects to a miniature that you're trying to paint to a nice commission standard is pretty reasonable. So if you want to have a go at this technique, get at me in the comments, let me know what you think about it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, your support does mean the world to me. And thank you for watching another one of my videos. I will see you in the next one.